Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, everyone. This is, of course, your favorite Shogun here, Sugi, and today I'm gonna be absolutely delighted to review the Season 2 of Alice in Borderland. And there will be quite a lot of spoilers included on this review, so in case you don't want to know anything, pause this video and come back later. So, basically, Season 2 starts off where we left off on the first season, which was these giant zeppelins basically appeared in the sky, which all of them having different signs like the Jack of Hearts or King of Clubs and etc. And these are basically the final stages of the game, or the final game, so to speak. And Season 2 is basically all about that. But I would also argue that perhaps the games themselves are not the main focus here around. I think there's a lot more about general ethics when it comes to humanity. What is reality, what is right, what is wrong, what is just thing to do, what is living, and why do we do things. And there's like a lot of these philosophical questions that get bounced around this season especially. Yes, there was quite a lot of that in the first season as well, but this time around we get a lot more answers and like what is the basic meaning around everything. And I think that takes a lot of focus this season, like the general human ethics. Now, the first game is with King of Clubs, and this is kind of like around the first 3 episodes of the season. So this season is also 8 episodes like the first season, but some of the episodes are actually over 1 hour long. So in general length of time, this is actually a longer season. And perhaps the highlight of this whole season was the conversation between Arisu and Kyoma, who is basically the King of Clubs. And Kyoma makes the case to Arisu that the world that they are living in, Borderlands, is a lot more closer to reality. That the actual human relationships and things that we witness, the death of our friends and everything, are a lot more closer to real humanity, and here's how you see what people truly are in their heart of hearts. And this is like a very thought-provoking, discussion that happens in, the course of all these 3 initial episodes, because that's what really Kyoma is trying to kind of lay down, that I don't want to go back to the real world, that this is my home now and this is what I enjoy doing, or not necessarily enjoy, but he is seeing that this is the true reality here. And basically, in a way, Arisu becomes friends with Kyoma during this bond, and then Arisu makes the appeal that we would have become friends outside of this game as well. And Kyoma is not necessarily 100% convinced about that statement, but I wouldn't say that he would have been outright declining that possibility. But that's probably, I think, the whole message, what the Borderland is trying to tell us as a whole, that this is like the question about in like reality. Like, most people are living in these metropolitan areas with over 1 million people on them, and this idea of a local community is mostly gone. Most people do not know who are their neighbors, their names, their jobs, etc. Like, that's a reality for a lot of people who live in cities, and we have become very disconnected from the old style of living where people lived in a town of 1,000 people and everybody knew each other, and there was a local community with local traditions and yada yada yada. And now we don't live it anymore, and there is a lot of fakeness in the world. We live in a society where lying is incentivized, but telling the truth, not so much. You can't, succeed in life by telling the truth. It's like, look at all the whistleblowers in the world, for example. Like, what has happened to their lives when they come out the truth? So we kind of live in a bit of a perverse world. But I don't want to go into too much into like my personal thoughts about it. So let's kind of continue with this review. But I thought that there was a lot of beautiful, thought-provoking discussions in this series that ask deeper questions about humanity and the life we are living. And there's a lot of allegories into the Japanese life, obviously, which is drastically very different, and I would argue in some ways seems a lot more hollow way of living, from a Western lens at some degree. And towards the end of the season, there are a lot of these Shamalaya curveballs thrown at the viewer, and I felt like, okay, like, what is the true ending here? Like, why are we so being tricked all the time here? But that was like, it was kind of good. But I do have to emphasize that the last episode was like a 1 hour and 30 minutes maybe, and I felt it was unnecessarily long. It had these kind of boring segments to it, which I kind of just skipped through or fast forwarded through them. Like, it was important build up, but then again, it wasn't really important build up. Like, I just wanted to see the real ending here. And I have to say, when it comes to the ending, I thought it was extremely satisfying, actually. It felt natural, and it felt a rewarding conclusion to this story that we have been building up these 16 episodes basically. And I always said that writing endings is not as easy as it is, because there's always going to be people who are going to be very unsatisfied with the way you wrote these things and yada yada yada. And I thought this was pretty much one of the best endings that they could have had. I mean, because I already talked about the fake endings that are kind of being portrayed, the Shamalaya curveballs. I think those I would have been not very big fond of. And but this true ending, it seems kind of like a plausible explanation, and everybody kind of gets a second chance, kind of. But yeah, and it shows that there might be a deeper connection in between people, like the ending that Arisu and Yosagi get. Everybody wanted to see that, but it could have gone the other way around. I know that the manga has a bit of a different ending. I'm not, like, what I've read, based on what I've read, but I haven't exactly, don't know how it goes down. But in the very ending scene, there is the table, and in the table there is the Joker card, which is an allegory to that maybe the ending is fake, or the game is not over yet. That's the two things. So it's kind of like a cliffhanger there, kind of leading that maybe Netflix wants to produce more seasons. And honestly, I wouldn't mind having additional seasons, but it kind of defeats the purpose of the games, okay? Or, like, we know the purpose of the games if they're going to be happening again. So unless the game designs themselves are not interesting, like in Squid Games, for example, it might not be that I might not be so incentivized actually watching that through. But I would really enjoy to see that with different cast of characters instead. So I would just put everybody else, resting them to bed, and maybe put them into a cameo or something. I don't know how they did it in the manga or something, because it seemed like this is what I only have a hunch on, that at some point I used to think that he kind of bought into this idea that the real world is not for him and he has to return to the Borderland. That's what happens in the manga, but I don't know the key specifics of that. And that could be the premise for the season 3. But then again, like, he has basically his happy ending already here. And I don't want him to go back and lose that happy ending, if that makes sense. So I would just rather have a different cast if there's going to be additional seasons of this. But I do like the ending, and I thought this was actually a great show. In a lot of ways, it is an underrated show. I think it was the show that came before Squid Game, and like that's what I said on the first season review, that I think it was could have used a lot more of the praise than Squid Game did, and it didn't become as of a national hit. And I think that has a lot to do with there's something about Japanese style of filming, the Japanese style of culture, that just didn't basically correlate with so much with the West as the Korean ones. The Koreans maybe is a bit more Korean style is a lot more visual and perhaps a bit more aesthetic, and that might have more appeal into to the Western audience. But who knows? And maybe they're just better social media managing and things like marketing to the West. But who knows? And one thing I also do want to add is the character Anne, and her going into the borders of the land and like doing these scientific tests and everything, and all of that side plot felt like absolutely meaningless in the grand scheme of things, because she never actually delivered, quote unquote, the truth of what's going on or anything, nor did she like have any type of proper ending. Once the actual ending rolled out, like there was nothing that was kind of weird to have that build up, but maybe If they do additional seasons, maybe we'll be playing into something else. I don't know, but that was weird to kind of like build up this storyline, which leads into nowhere. Maybe it was cut out from the... I don't know, but yeah, I was enjoying this. I think there was really good games also. The second and the third game were really well done. Maybe the last game could have been a lot more impactful instead of like some weird psychoanalysis, which didn't really go nowhere and didn't really play a big part into... Well, I mean, it was kind of significant, but not to me, at least. But thanks for watching. I will be seeing you in the next review when it will be. And Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. See you later. Cheers.